Let's talk about Tesla fires, which feels like it happens every other day nowadays because we see images like this in the media all the time. Now, I'm going to tackle this issue once and for all, and I want to know, is this because Teslas really are made so poorly that they just catch on fire every other day? Is it because media, wants to push these stories because they generate a lot of clicks and views and it's exciting because, cars on fire? Or is it because you, the viewers, who love these stories because it is exciting? And by the way, let's be very honest, the reason you're watching this video and the reason I am doing this video is because you clicked on a thumbnail that had a Tesla on fire and the words Tesla fires on a thumbnail, right? This is exciting. This is why we're talking about it. Is it because NTSB gets involved pretty much every other time? Well, I should say every time. And then Elon Musk replies and there's all this drama going on. I'm going to tackle it all, but first I want to know what you guys think. So before I go any further, before you know what my opinion is on this, I want you to put who you think is to blame for this in the comments of this video, and we can kind of continue the discussion as this video grows on YouTube and other social media. And we're gonna do it all. We're gonna tackle all this mess coming up next.
Taking over the world, electrifying the world, electric.
Thank you if you're watching me live on Patreon, I really appreciate it. Of course, if you're watching me on YouTube, consider subscribing so you don't miss anything moving forward, and you will always stay up to date on everything that's going on in the world of electric cars, including Tesla fires. Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about this. Now, we know that, this is one of the images that we've seen recently. This was also a celebrity husband's a Tesla. There are also some tragic ones, like this one here near me in Mountain View on 101, where it actually took a life of the driver who had this on autopilot. Before we go any further, I hope we can agree that, yes, because this is a new technology, battery-powered electric cars, self-driving car, or at least a car with the autopilot on. These are new technologies, and we do need to be very careful as we monitor these cars or these new technologies to make sure that they're not causing too much trouble. So when they are going to be mass-produced by all manufacturers in the future, we're not all going to die in fiery crashes. Okay, so I think there's some fairness to that. However, we all know that, there's 150,000 cars in the United States that are gas cars that catch on fire every year, and nobody seems to give a crap whatsoever. And people, by the way, die in those crashes. Now, and yes, we already talked about it. The media, obviously, this is a big deal. There are some, Tesla haters out there, that just kind of are sponsored, or that's their politics, that they really don't want electric cars and Elon Musk to succeed and so forth. And there are people who just want to sell newspapers who put the stories in. Now, I try to be pretty fair about it, and once again, I'm realizing we're talking about this right now. But I think another reason why we're actually give these fires so much coverage is because NTSB, right? The National Transportation Safety Board gets involved every time. Now, again, like I mentioned, I understand why we need to keep the new technologies in kind of in the loop and keep our eye on it, but really every time, what really bothered me about this is there was a crash I think the last month in Florida, where two teenagers took the Tesla Model S on this wild ride. They were going like 100 miles, something crazy in a residential zone. They wiped out, they hit they went through, I think, 2 walls, and died because the car caught on fire. There was no autopilot involved at all here, and yet it made the news, and then NTSB decided to investigate this. There is absolutely no reason for a federal investigation on just 2 teenagers joyriding at high speeds. I think we know what happened there. As long as we know the autopilot wasn't on, so the new technology wasn't on, why are you guys investigating, right? Now, of course, there's another counter to that as well, because when Elon Musk gets involved, that gets interesting and everybody jumps on that because it's all more exciting stuff. Now, I have to say that this year, I really don't get the guy. I feel like he's done more damage than good in terms of PR for Tesla, as he tweets stuff out, including this crash that I just talked to you guys about here in 101, right? That actually killed a person that was on autopilot. Now, NTSB did launch an investigation, and then Elon Musk tweeted out or made a statement about what was actually happening. He enclosed some information from the logs from that Tesla, and NTSB said, "Hey, dude, you know, we're still ongoing investigation. You're party to this investigation. You really shouldn't be doing this." And then Elon Musk basically tweeted out, basically telling them to go screw themselves. And of course, they did the same by kicking Tesla out as as a participating party. Now, here's why it's bad for Tesla, right? Now, obviously, NTSB, I think, overreacted. But the thing is, it's at the end, Tesla is going to end up being a loser in this, because when you are a party to investigation, you get to submit information to, or maybe counter some other information to an investigation. So once they release their results, at least both parties, both sides of the story represented, and Tesla or anybody who is a party to investigation has some influence on that, or at least be able to bring some facts to NTSB. Now that Tesla is not part of the investigation, you know, there might be some facts that will not be included or considered, and this is only going to be bad for Tesla. So Elon Musk getting involved like this in this case, I believe is only going to damage what the findings are. Now, does NTSB need to jump into every single one of them? Just like I said, the one on Florida had absolutely no reason for that. And, you know, correct me if I'm wrong. Just like I said, the comment section right below. But if you ask me, they didn't, and I'll tell you why. Right now, I'm gonna tell you about this story that I bet you never heard of, that involves Hyundai and their cars catching on fire, and how much coverage that got, and how NTSB handled that one. I'm gonna tell you that right now. I'm gonna go ahead and let you guys sit down and maybe grab a drink, a glass of drink, because it's gonna make you really angry. So I'm gonna use the time to let you know that this channel and this video is sponsored by Evanex, the aftermarket accessories for Tesla that are not on fire. And if you want to shop there, you can grab yourself a discount code in the description of this video, so you can save yourself a few bucks. All right, let's talk about NTSB's and how they've handled this. Now, by the way, I saw this story somewhere in my Google feed news feed a few days ago, but there were so many news about Model 3 that I thought, you know, I can always cover the story a few days later. There was nothing urgent. I came back today, try looking for the story, and even though, get this, and this is a screenshot from my computer, even though I looked for NTSB car fire investigation, everything that I pulled, you know, all of these results were all involving Tesla fires, and none of them really involved the most recent story, which is this one by ABC News. They're the only ones that cover the story. It is the latest story on cars catching on fire, and this is the only one I was able to find. It literally took me 10 minutes to figure out how do I find the story. Now, let's talk about it. Now, this involves Hyundai, and really, this is not about them, because, I mean, this happens to a lot of manufacturers, but here's the problem. Now, and I got some notes here because this story gets a little wild, right? Now, Hyundai had to recall, let's see, I think it says 1.7 million cars, because I guess I don't even know, that the particles from the manufacturers got caught somewhere in the oil lines and ended up causing the engines either overheat or shut down. And so they recalled this many cars. Now, it was a two-stage recall. They didn't recall enough at first, then they recalled more. And, you know, NTSB really was just kind of watching it, but really wasn't investigating it. And it's a shame, because guess what? Some of these cars were catching on fire. Now, it wasn't until this guy, so this is Senator Bill Nelson, and he was actually working with Center for Auto Safety, which is a separate organization. And they told NTSB, they said, hey guys, a lot of these cars seem to catch on fire, and not because of the crash. They kind of simultaneously catch on fire as they were driving and overheating. Now, NTSB was kind of like, oh, really? Well, we didn't really, Hyundai is supposed to report those to us. Well, the Senator Nelson said, listen, just by our encounters here in Florida, there were 23 reports of people reporting these cars catching on fire for no reason whatsoever. And then that the Center for Auto Safety Organization said that we saw 120 fires that had no collision involved across the country. Now, by the way, if we're keeping track, I believe Tesla count of all fires altogether, including the crashes where it should really explode, I believe it's under a dozen. Correct me if I'm wrong. But now, just here, we're talking about what, 133? I know I'm Russian, but I'm not that good at math, unfortunately. But 133 is what I get here in my numbers. So the Senator and other organization had to kind of pressure NTSB to get this, investigated. And this is what this story is all about, right? Because this is, by the way, altogether 402 fires complaints for Hyundai specifically, with or without an actual crash. Now, even though there is, don't forget, the NTSB had no problems investigating fires involving both in Tesla. So, as we talk about, maybe media and viewers and who wants to hear what and who wants to talk about, get the clicks and stuff like that, it's all good. But, when NTSB gets involved, that is an official federal investigation that is concerning public safety, right? So when they get involved, that is a legitimate reason for people to start covering the story, right? Of course, again, we still get that sexiness of the story because it is Tesla and because it is fire. But really, I think NTSB is definitely a guilty party here in some ways because, again, all these cars catching on fire, no investigation. They had to be pressured by organizations and senators. But somehow every time Tesla catches on fire, they consistently do that. By the way, they released preliminary information about the fire. And by the way, the only thing that we saw come out of it is that the battery pack got caught on fire twice after it was put out. That's not what I expect from the investigation, okay? What I expect from the investigation is what caused it. Kind of the whole point of this whole organization, if you ask me, not what happened after, though that is still important. But it seems like, what's the point of preliminary report if there is not much to report? So again, let's summarize. Over 150,000 cars, gas cars, catch on fire, and people die all the time. I believe it's a person a day. About what, 12 fires for Tesla in over 5 years, and I believe only a few people died in those, and most of them probably would have died if it was any other car anyway. So if we to examine why this is happening, well, NTSB involvement, and of course Elon Musk, a very aggressive response, and then media jumping on top of that, and then, the last time it was a celebrity. This is why we're doing this. But at the same time, I really wish these stories would have both sides of the story. I wish the media was able to cover the other ones, and kudos to ABC, by the way, for doing this. And no kudos whatsoever, shame on everybody else who never picked up the story, including the other websites and other YouTube channels. That is kind of our job to do this, right? Why wasn't this on Electrek, right? Why isn't everybody else talking about this when this is a legitimate story that kind of gives legitimacy to what's happening to Tesla and to what Elon Musk is saying about the mainstream media. Now, I've been critical about Elon Musk kind of putting everybody under the same brush, which I sometimes believe includes me. I think he's been very sort of, again, too aggressive and sometimes unfair in the way he attacks the media, but his intention is legit because of stories like this being covered and not being covered. All right, well, listen, I've kind of kept this up for a few days because I was reporting on Model 3, but really this is what's been bothering me ever since I saw that story and the coverage of the story. I think I'm literally getting allergic to it right now. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Who do you think is to blame? Why do you think there's so much coverage? And what can really we do as reporters, YouTubers, and so forth, journalists? What Elon Musk can do in order to maybe educate the general public and maybe give a better perspective to this. At the same time, let's be fair and also let me know how much of this could be and should be under the microscope, because it is a new technology. Actually, two technologies in one, right? A lot of times autopilot is involved and the battery technology is involved. So let me know. I'm definitely interested in hearing what you have to say. Other than that, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so these stories like this make it right into your inbox. Thank you for that. And other than that, see you next time, and remember to stay charged.